Tell me when we're recording, Dave.
We're up.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Mental Health Family Hour. We are here and joined by some wonderful guests for another bonus episode. So today's focus is going to be about learning disabilities, but there's something that I just want to touch on whilst I say this, and it's something from the Down Syndrome Twitter page where it says, "We believe in ability, not disability," which I think is absolutely fantastic, and I will come back to this. So just to introduce who myself and Dave are again. So my name's Sam Tyrer. I'm the founder of a service called Change Talks, and I'm also the prevention engagement lead at Lancashire and South Cumbria Foundation Trust. So what I do is I deliver education throughout Lancashire and South Cumbria with the aim to prevent mental health problems.
And my name's Dave Cottrell. I operate online as Mindset by Dave. My aim is to bring mindset and mental health education to as many people as humanly possible through, well, as many medias as possible, including live streaming, videos, podcasts, and live presentations.
And if anyone has any questions today, please do email me on sam.tyrer, so Tyrer, at lancashirecare.nhs.uk. So, welcome to our lovely guests from Down Syndrome. So, would you like to introduce yourselves? Who would like to go first? Jen, would you like to go first?
I'm happy to. I'm Jen. I'm the founder director, the queen of Down Syndrome. I am everything. It's my life. It's my everything. I wouldn't have done it without my support right by my side. Just the most amazing feeling ever, because thank you, Mum and Dad, for raising me up, because I was born to dance. Thank you so much for everything. It's my life, my everything. Down Syndrome is my family, so I love my family.
And I think you're an amazing dancer as well, Jen. I've seen some of your videos, so you'll have to teach me at some point, I think, because I cannot move like that. So, Donna, would you like? Great, look forward to it. Donna, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Donna. I'm Jen's lead support, and I'm also a professional dance artist that works alongside Jen when we're out and about doing workshops with Down Syndrome and performances. Basically, we're arm in arm, aren't we, all the time?
Yes, we are.
Going out there into the world, showing people how to dance.
Perfect. So, Sue and Malcolm.
I'm Jen's mum, and Jen's been a bit of a takeover bit of my life. So I had a set of scales, and one side said career and the other side said Jen, and Jen always won. So fundamentally, it's been about supporting Jen to have the best quality of life that we could. And I wanted to never be able to turn and say, well, I didn't try. We did try. And no matter what the outcomes, if you've tried your best, then you cannot ask more of yourself. So I'm very, very proud to be Jen's mum, and she is doing absolutely extraordinary things with her life.
Yeah, I'm Jen's dad, Malcolm. So I'm not sure I can add much more, because Sue and I have worked closely on, as you'd expect, on what we've been doing over years. It's been a great journey, the charity, I must admit. I think when we started it, we didn't realize what we got hold of, but it's turned into something that is much, much larger than just us and Jen, and has a huge impact to everybody. And it's great to see the changes that you see in people's lives through what we do. So.
Perfect. And Christina?
So I'm Christina, and I'm mum to Max, who's now 3. I got involved with Down syndrome after he was born, and I was given a diagnosis of Down syndrome, and everything was very statistical, but I thought, what's actually out there for the future? And I came across Down syndrome, and of course the fact that Jen herself is actually the founder, and they teach people with learning disabilities to become the dance leaders, really spoke to me, because I think we all want our children to succeed in the future, and that's what I really want for Max as well.
Great. So could someone give us an insight to the history of Down syndrome, when it was created, the thought process behind it? Would that be okay?
That sounds like it might be me. So Down syndrome came about as a result of Jen wanting to be a community dance worker. And there were no avenues, there were no opportunities for her to pursue that career path. So at 18, she left school. We spent the next 10 years looking for those training opportunities for her to gain the skills to be able to go out into the wide world and share her passion for dance. So her mission is to get the world dancing, and she doesn't really care who you are. She doesn't care what age you are, what size you are, what ethnicity you are. She doesn't give a fig about any of that. She just wants to get the world dancing, and she has demonstrated that from day one when she would meet anybody in any situation, and before you knew it, she was turning to them and saying, well, let's try this and try that and step here. And it's been her throughout, and that's the body language speaking. So we spent 10 years looking. Eventually we just said, let's just try it our way without any anticipation of where this was going to lead. Here we are 11 years on in the most extraordinary place, and trying to steer this vessel, at least Malcolm is very gamely steering this vessel, into brighter, bigger, bonnier futures even than we currently are experiencing. So it was Jen's need to dance.
Fantastic. And what has it done for you, Jen, Down syndrome?
It's done everything for me. I'm so proud of my dancing family, so proud of of all my fellow dance leaders. I owe them my life, and I give my life to them because they are my destiny, they are my future, they are my vision. So I can see their vision in my eyes and in my heart, and I love that.
And is there anything in particular that you'd like to do next with it?
I'm hoping to go abroad to different countries to deliver dance or a performance.
That's fantastic. Dave, do you want to ask the question that you did before as well, prior to recording, which I think was a fantastic one?
I've totally forgotten what it was now. Oh yeah, about communication, wasn't it? So Jen, you were saying earlier that it helped you to communicate through dance, and what I was wondering is, by communicating through dance, did that help you to communicate in other ways better as well?
Yes, because we do like Zoom. We do everybody dance on Zoom. We also, me and Donna, we go together because we co-lead on the street dance, which I think is fantastic. So yeah, I do everything on Zoom. Great.
Excellent.
Go on, Dave. Sorry.
I've got a question for Donna actually, because obviously you're in the position now of being Jen's lead support, and you said you started off as her dance instructor. Did you intend to go down this particular route, or was it Down syndrome that brought you to kind of moving away from strict dance instructing to being in that supporting role? And how did that happen?
It was absolutely unbelievable, really, how everything happened. Went to a bit like a famed school to be that really good dancer and then dance teacher, which I had become at that point. And then Jen wanders into my dance studio. Hello, and there we go. We didn't look back. Basically, what happened? We started for a few months, didn't we, doing private lessons?
Yeah.
And then Sue said, "Oh, we've got this chat with this charity, and would you like to come and join us?" So we did a few things, didn't we, together? Yeah, we could go and do some workshops. So it started off very small, and then week by week we started doing more and more together, didn't we? And we did workshops all over in Blackpool, everywhere, as well as running the studio. And then I decided, do you know what? Just the difference was unbelievable. That strict dance school was great. That's how I was brought up. But then with completely what we were doing with Down syndrome, just to see everybody come in and maybe just very frustrated, to then all of a sudden leaving an hour later, 45 minutes after us all having so much fun, didn't we, Jen?
Yeah,
it was just mind-blowing. And then people coming and talking to you where before they wouldn't speak or wouldn't touch you, and just seeing the difference from day to day, week to week with everybody was just, it was phenomenal. And I decided to close my school at that point and work more with down this line, didn't I, with Down syndrome. And then also Jen was with me all the time anyway, so we thought, well, I may as well support you as well. So that's what we decided to do.
We are a duo, so we are both sisters.
Yeah, and we've never looked back, have we?
No, we've not.
And I think that really shows, Jen, on how much of a wonderful person you are. I think that story itself is absolutely fantastic. I think just out of interest, and Christina, you might be the best one to answer this. Without Down syndrome, are there any opportunities out there for people with learning disabilities such as this, or not?
There are very few learning opportunities for people with learning disabilities, unfortunately. And if you look at the statistics, very few people are actually employed as well. Yep. So this, it really did speak to me.
And Sue as well. What barriers did you face as whilst Jen was growing up, prior to setting up Down syndrome? Was you just trying to explore opportunities like this, and you just kept coming up against things that would stop you progressing further, or?
I think that's a huge question, and I think Jen did have a mainstream education, which we were able to achieve on the back of the 1981 Education Act, where she was one of the first beneficiaries of that. She started nursery school in 1983. So that gave us parents the right to fundamentally be a part of Jen's education. We were able to influence how she was educated. So rather than a special school and all of that being taken away from you, we worked with mainstream schools, but we very much worked alongside them and with them. And I think the biggest barrier that we faced through education was professionals who were not able to embrace us as partners in our daughter's education. So the professionals who kept you at arm's length because they knew all the answers, they'd done all the training, and they had all the letters after their name. So what could you possibly know about your daughter that they did not understand? And that proved to be a barrier through education at different points in time with different people. But then the others who were much more enlightened worked alongside you. And the best years of education that Jen experienced was at high school. So from 15 till 18, which is usually seen to be the most difficult time for a person with a disability to be in mainstream education. But we were working alongside really enlightened teachers and learning support assistants. And together, we were able to create this incredible scenario where Jen absolutely thrived. So on the one hand, you have the professionals that you're working alongside. On the other, you are a disabled family. So you don't have a person in your family who has a disability without you being a disabled family. And from our perspective, that meant that every action and every decision that we took within the family needed to embrace Jen, and it needed to be possible for her to be engaged in and participate in. So we weren't into the idea of farming her out somewhere, and whilst we went off and did other things, we did everything as a family. And so we had to take Jen's needs and considerations into account. So I think being a disabled family is something which society doesn't understand. They see a disabled person, but they do not see that close family or partnerships or whoever else it is in your life that are hugely influenced by that person's disability. So that creates a barrier which is unseen for the most part. And then finally, I mean, not finally, because one could speak forever on these things, but I think our lack of appreciation of Jen's social skills meant that she did not experience friendship. She did not experience meaningful friendship until she was 28. which is an awfully old age for that first experience to come along. So she had acquaintances, she spoke to people, they spoke to her. As far as Jen was concerned, that was friendship, because that's what she saw everybody else doing. But she didn't have anybody she'd pick up the phone to and speak to, have a cup of coffee with, chat with. That person did not exist in her life until she was 28. And we tried to address it full on. We tried to set up a scenario where we did incredible work with a large number of people in the local authority. But we were unsuccessful. We came away without Jen having one more ounce of understanding or experience of friendship. And that was around when she was 13 or so. And so we eventually looked away from that and we looked towards the dance. And as a result of focusing on the inner person within Jen and enabling the dance to speak and to shine, the experience of friendship was created, and unwittingly, to be honest, it just came on the back naturally of the dance. And so if I think of Down syndrome as having, the most important outcome, for me, it's that people with a learning disability experience meaningful friendship. And I think Donna and Jen and in particular are testimony to that. And everybody within Down syndrome talks about the dancing family. And it really is a family. It's a supportive environment where everybody can be their own person and does experience real friendship.
And in terms of struggling with friendships when Jen was younger, how do you think we can change that as a society? Do you think education needs to be improved around learning disabilities within schools? How do you think we can improve that? Obviously, there's Down syndrome contributing to this, but there may be individuals that dance isn't for them. So how could we improve it within the younger age group, do you think?
I think it's not just schools. I think it's fundamentally.
Sorry, Christina, your microphone is properly.
Should also learn a little bit more about people with learning disabilities. Can you hear me?
We lost you for a bit. You went a little bit Dalek.
We're in the middle of the countryside here, so my internet's a bit unstable. I apologise for that.
It's clear now. So, what did you just say? Sorry, your mic's working. I'm losing my voice.
It's not just about schools and children meeting other children with learning disabilities and learning what learning disabilities are. It's also healthcare professionals when they're getting their training, meeting people with learning disabilities, finding out what it really is to have a learning disability, not what it is to read something in a book.
Yeah, I agree. From being a nurse as well, I'm an adult nurse by background, and we never had any training on learning disabilities, but I took care of numerous people that came up onto my wards with no training whatsoever. So I totally agree with that. The healthcare professionals do need education on learning disabilities, 100%. Was you going to say something, Malcolm, as well towards this?
No. I was going to say that was our experience. That you get, as Sue mentioned, there were a lot of enlightened people, but also people who really had not had any experience, and they've read something in a book, and that was it. And so we've had some really good experiences and some really, I would say bad experiences in trying to deal through this.
What are some of the things that you wish what are some of the things that the more enlightened people brought to the table that the people that had only read a few things in the book, if there was kind of 3 or 4 things that you wish that everyone would just know, what would they be?
I think Sue touched on it earlier. The first one for me is listen to what the person's actually saying, not assume what they want or what they're saying. So actually take the time to listen and make them comfortable in the environment that you're in, so that the individual feels that they can really express themselves properly, rather than you assume somebody that's what they want, whatever that happens to be. So I think a lot of it is about this sort of listening, an assumption problem that you have, that people come in with a preconceived idea, and you need to push that to one side, and then look at the person in front of you and deal with the person that you see and you talk to and you listen to, rather than that preconception. I think that's the biggest part for me.
So this is fundamentally the social model of disability, obviously, and if you allow your judgment to be clouded because a person comes to you with a descriptor, and whether that's learning disability or physical disability or mental health issues, if you listen to that descriptor, you've already made assumptions about the person you are meeting. Whereas if you can put all of that on one side and meet the person, in this situation called Jen or called Max, or even called Sue or Malcolm or Donna, then just meet that person and understand that person and allow them to be able to communicate in the way that works best for them, which may be verbal, it may not be verbal. And I think testimony to that within Down syndrome in particular, and obviously in visually, is Jodie, who is a quadriplegic. She has quadriplegic cerebral palsy. So she uses a wheelchair, but she leads her own dance workshops. She leads regular weekly workshops. She is key to every Down syndrome performance. And the smiles that Jodie lights the stage up with when she is given that opportunity to be that leader, which is what Down syndrome is all about. It's about putting people with a learning disability into not only dance, but leadership roles within the dance, and allowing them to have that element of control, which is equal to the control that anybody else has. So if you watch Jodie in any of these situations, she will give the instructions via an electronic sound communication board. Is that the right terminology? And so you will hear this electronic voice, and then she will turn to the camera with the biggest of smiles saying, right, now go do that, that's what I'm telling you to do. And it's just absolute dynamite to watch. But if you don't know Jodie, and if you use the medical model of disability, you're just looking at somebody in a wheelchair, you're not going to expect her to dance, are you? She is just extraordinary. And Donna and Jen, you can speak to that as well.
Are you good friends with Jodie, Jen, as well?
I am, yes. I'm one of Jodie's friends.
Is she a good dancer?
Yeah, she's an awesome dancer, an awesome dance leader. Yeah, she every time she does a show or a performance, she always lightens up. It's like her smile, her eyes, she just lights up the world around her and all of us. I can see that happening in the future, hopefully.
And through this as well, it's not just about dance. Jodie performing, as like Sue mentioned, she leads her own workshops. But not just that, she really loves choreographing, doesn't she? She absolutely loves choreographing, and she's done many, many amazing numbers that we've performed out there. Not just with Down syndrome, she's gone into universities and done things, hasn't she? So these opportunities that are there for everybody, it's just amazing. It really is, and it's that light, isn't it? It's like when Jen dances. It's a light from within that comes out. It's everybody, and that's what Jodie has, and the smile. It's just wonderful to see.
Yeah. So just to touch on, Sue, you mentioned about leadership as well. With Down syndrome, is one of the services you offer, do you do like a leadership course? Am I right in saying that, or am I wrong there?
Well, we do. So that's called Dance by Example, which my friend Peter and Sophie lead. So that's training people to become dance leaders.
And where do you run these courses? Are these within businesses, community groups?
In the Preston area.
Preston area.
Yeah, so these are out to everybody. So it's community, and anybody can take part. Anybody can come along, and it's a block of 12 sessions that we tend to do. And it's we've got different levels as well, so we're constantly progressing.
Yeah.
Yes, and I did one, and I got my certificate as well. So
brilliant. And is there any other services that Down syndrome offers? Is there anything else, or?
And I don't know. Do you want me to jump in? It's yeah. I mean, Down syndrome can fundamentally do anything, which it's as wide as you choose to make it. So I think a point which we talk about leadership, but I think we should absolutely make the point that our leaders are our dancers with learning disabilities. So it's not just Jen's wish to be a leader. It's the Jens and the Jodies and the Peters and the Beckys and any number of other people who are our leaders, and they take us on this journey. So not only is it about having the opportunity to be a leader, it's about them being in the lead of Down syndrome, and the rest of us are scurrying along behind and trying to keep up. So I think that's really, really important. And Jen talks about Peter and Sophie delivering the leadership course, which they do. But of course, actually, it's Peter delivering, who does have a learning disability, with Sophie providing the dance artist support in the same way that Jen and Donna work. So I think that is absolutely key to Down syndrome. And that's what makes us different from the rest of the world, who are offering opportunities for people with a learning disability to dance. So we are led by our dancers with learning disabilities. But in terms of what we can offer, yes, we do the leadership training and workshops, performances, conferences, black tie events, entertainment. What else do we do?
Going to, as Christina said, universities. We've got a toddler Zoom group that Christina runs. So we, I think if you split it into its various elements, we've got the community workshops that we've been doing, and of course in the lockdown, that's all moved on to Zoom. We've got the training sessions for learning for the artists. The dance artists and the dance leaders, but also there's training for, like the universities. We go into universities and do seminars for the university students. We've done performances, and into some businesses we've done, if you like, inclusion training in businesses. So we can do a module for businesses in inclusion training. So it's a wide range of things that the charity's been involved in over the last few years.
First time I met you guys came to an AGM, and it was a really good team building exercise as well. We all got to stand around. Jen led us doing some dancing, everybody joined in, and it was just, just broke the ice, and we all got to know each other that way. It was really lovely. So there was that side of it as well. And Jen also mentioned the friendship. You've been doing quizzes while the lockdown's been on. I think, you feel isolated. Everyone's been isolated during this time. So it's just been lovely to see that the friendship's still been there, and you've been dancing on the everybody. Was it dance by example on a Wednesday, Jen?
It's the development on a Wednesday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the interesting part is that, as I said, is that it's a community that has developed in the charity, and it's really is. And people use the phrase "the family," dancing family, and that sort of describes the way in which the charity's developed and the inclusion that everybody has. And it's not only inclusion for, let's call it, the dance artists and dance leaders. What's also interesting, of course, is it becomes something for the families, their families, or the carers, where you have a whole community that you're developing, and they can all learn, and somebody else has been through that experience, and there's somebody to talk to. So it's much more of an inclusive overall offering, I suppose, if you like, or organisation that is being developed. Which, as I said earlier, is it's not what we thought it would be when we first started this. That wasn't, but it's grown into something much more.
Right, so when you talk about mental health, obviously peer-to-peer support it helps your mental health. I know it's helped me, you know, speaking to you guys about Max and looking to the future, because without Down syndrome, I wouldn't have been as positive. I wouldn't have had such a positive outlook. So thank you guys.
You did have some questions in regards to mental health, didn't you, Dave, that we touched on briefly?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, I think it's been fantastic that so many of the principles that we talk about often have come up here as well. So things like community, things like communication. A big one is, like, you know, what Christina's kind of just said, is the fact that, and it, you know, is supporting the supporters. You know, yourselves, it's about, you know, you said earlier, it's about having your entire family is involved in that, and it's important for kind of for all of you to get the support as well. It's not just supporting the individuals, but it's supporting the people who are in that supporting role as well. And I think it's just fantastic. But the thing that I've found really fascinating about what you guys do is the whole empowerment, is the leadership roles. Because it's not just, okay, here you go, you can come along and do this. It's like, no, you can come along and be this. You can come along and lead this. And I think, you know, there's so many different principles in mental health, but one thing that we want to feel in order to have positive mental health is we want to feel that we've got that self-efficacy. We want to feel like we have control over some things, that we are able to kind of lead or teach. And I think some people just find that. Some people are, like, you know, are forceful and will just jump into leadership positions, but many people never get the opportunity to, because they're not necessarily natural leaders, but they're not trained as leaders. And what I would be interested to know is, during that leadership process, what are the sort of differences you see in people from kind of day one to, like, you know, to when they finish and they become dance leaders themselves?
Who wants to answer that?
I think on a general level, you know, I'm not. It's a difficult one to answer, but you just see the change in people. They grow in confidence, they grow in their communication skills. You mentioned it earlier about efficacy, and also I always send the phrase, you need a reason to get out of bed in the morning, and sometimes people struggle with finding what that reason is, and I think what the charity offers helps to fill that gap. And by the leadership program, it just develops people's skills. It makes them more confident. It gives them if you like, a skill that they can offer. And it also means, I think an important part is that it means that they feel as though they're really part of society and they're giving something back, because they're then going out and leading workshops for other people, you know, for the benefit of other people as well. So if you look at the individuals and you say, how have they changed? A huge part of it is something that Donna said, is, you know, that when they first come, they won't speak, they won't talk, they'll sit in the corner, maybe they'll sort of join in, but then gradually their confidence grows, and then you start seeing they start talking, they start becoming involved, you get more physical contact, which is always sometimes an issue, and their whole personality moves up, if you see what I mean. Not doesn't change, but they move up in terms of their confidence and their willingness to take a larger role, rather than being sort of in the background. They realize that they've got something to offer, and the sort of thing you see change, I think, is that.
Absolutely. And the fascinating thing is that this isn't only the case for the learning disabled dancers, this is the case across the piece. You know, it applies equally to the dance artists, and to see the development within them in short spaces of time is absolutely extraordinary. So it works on both counts. Yeah. But I think also it's a totally non-judgmental arena in which we operate. There's no right and there's no wrong, which is the way that it's coined, and people are encouraged to join in. And somehow it's much more liberating and easier to join in when you're being led by a dancer who has learning disabilities than it is when you're watching pristine perfection and being encouraged to lead. Yeah. And that's true whether you're doing yoga or dance or anything. You know, if somehow it's more of an encouraging situation, but they as you say, Malcolm says, they become contributors to life. And once you achieve that, then all of a sudden your self-respect and your self-worth increase, and you become a more confident person in your own right. And people come to us with any number or from any number of situations. They don't even necessarily come to dance. They come because it is an atmosphere which is non-judgmental.
Yeah.
And they might sit on the sideline for a year and a day, and then suddenly they'll get up and they'll join in and they'll dance. But people come with all sorts of different starting points, and we probably won't know half of what those starting points are, but we don't need to either, because we are a space where everybody is welcomed, everybody is valued, and gradually everybody is drawn into this magical dance environment.
Yeah.
So they change.
I mean, I know that obviously within learning disabilities, it is quite a broad scope. There's a lot of different. There are a lot of different learning disabilities, and you've got a lot of individualism within that. But are there any common mental health concerns that someone with learning disabilities is more susceptible to that you're aware of?
Isolation and depression. Isolation, I think, is the biggest issue. Because to me, is without that, if you look generally, I would say that that's sort of the isolation side of it, where they're not part of society, and I think that can lead to things like depression, feeling not part.
But I suppose where I'm coming from is saying that a person with a learning disability is no more prone or not prone to isolation. It's society who creates that isolation. So it's not because of the learning disability, but it is the way that society handles learning disability, and that is a huge difference.
Yeah, sort of almost the stigma that creates that. In the same way that within mental health, you have, like, I have type 2 bipolar disorder, for example, but I'm very high functioning in it, so most people don't. Like, I've even heard the whole, you don't look like you have type 2 bipolar disorder. I've had that, whereas other people that I've not been tremendously stigmatized against because of that, whereas other people with the exact same condition, that it's more apparent in their actions and behavior, would be stigmatized. And again, it's not the condition that's necessarily done that, it's society's reaction to the condition. So are there kind of, when you talk about isolation, that's I guess that's another part of what the groups and things offer. And if someone, again, isn't necessarily into dance or that type of thing, what would be something maybe to recommend to even the parents or the carers of this person to try and help that person become less isolated?
Well, I mean, from our point of view, I suppose I would say generally it's join into something like this. I mean, dance might not be what they're particularly interested in, but what are they interested in? Mm-hmm. How can you find that element? I mean, but as what we find is that people come along and they might not think they're interested in dance, but quite quickly they get involved in it and it becomes a fun activity.
Yeah.
Then it grows from there, because most people like to dance. They, in some way, you might feel a bit embarrassed or odd, or feel that you've got two left feet. But as far as at one of the workshops, people don't care. They don't. Nobody's worried about that. Just come along and have some fun. And I think that's the start point, is finding something that you can join into and have that involvement.
We get a lot of cross that come in that may not, don't like dancing, but they love the music.
Okay.
So it's through music. So maybe they won't join in at first, but just asking, what's your favourite music? Shall we put something on now? Shall we? And getting people involved that way, and step by step, you'll find that actually most people actually love to dance, and it's all through the music. So some people might like heavy metal, might they? And some people might like the soft lyrical music. Everybody's different.
Yeah.
Everybody likes something different. So we'll give them whatever they want, don't we?
Whereas Jonathan, one of my friends.
Oh, it's Jonathan's birthday today, one of our dance leaders. So she has been saying it's his birthday all morning.
Yeah. So Jonathan, he sometimes he's alongside myself at Himley, which is awesome. He's my friend. He looks to all of us, because I'm giving Jonathan his life in dance as a dance leader, but he does have a disability like I have. So I'm giving him that chance of a lifetime. It's just amazing.
Jen, is when you feel, if you feel different ways on different days, does that change the way you dance?
It does, yeah, because I'm in isolation as well as Don is. I'm not going out now until August time, but lockdown for me is our biggest barrier.
Has that made you change the way you feel with your dance?
No, it's not.
You still like to dance the same way? Which I can vouch, you'll still dance the same way, because that's all we do all day, isn't it?
Yeah, we do all day.
No, the reason I asked is just that basically movement and emotions are linked in both directions. So often people say, "Oh, I'm like, you know, if you see someone who's kind of their head's all hung low and all the rest of it, it's like, oh, they must be depressed because they're like that." And it can be often the other way around, that actually they're like that because they're depressed, and it can be, you know, it can work both ways. And I absolutely, one of the things I love, like what, you know, Sam tried to encourage me to show off some of my dance moves earlier, was I love using dance for that, because
you still can.
I'm not, maybe at the very close, so maybe once we turn the cameras off. But yeah, maybe I'll just throw a few little, but I can't help it.
Ben's making you an offer there.
But it's basically that if you actually almost want to, often people dance in the way that they feel, or they move in the way that they feel, but you can actually impact a person's emotions by having them dance in an opposite way to how they feel, because by moving in a certain way, it brings the emotion with it. It's like, you think, if you go to, when we could go to sporting events, when your favorite team scored, you wouldn't go, "Yay, I'm so happy they've scored." And at the same time, if you were really feeling sad, you wouldn't be like, "I'm so depressed." So whereas if you automatically kind of get into those positions, or you move in a certain way like that, it's almost like we worked with a Liverpool-based company called Mallet in the community, who basically do they do acting for this. They do acting for mental health, and they, you know, it's like when you get into character in a certain way, it can instead of you kind of go in that way because you feel a certain way, getting into that character can make you feel a certain way. So I was just wondering if you use dance, if you're feeling sad, if you dance in one way, or if you're feeling happy, you dance in another way.
Of course, yeah. But being in isolation is a barrier, but it doesn't stop me from dancing in my own home.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jen, in the morning, one of the first things you do, what do you do in the morning, Jen?
I always do my Zumba.
Okay.
This is how she likes to start her day. Start as you mean to go on, don't you?
Yeah.
And it's that get up and let's do this.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Yeah. And sometimes I also join in the mornings with Dave's session. So that's David Darcy and David Core working together to deliver a session with all the other guys, just to say, hey, welcome. Nice to see everyone, get everyone dancing in the morning. It's just a nice wake up feeling. But with me and my Zumba, I love it.
Mm.
It's happy endorphins flowing. gets the happy endorphins flowing.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
Yeah.
Christina, I was wondering if you could, you said about this as being good. Yeah, getting involved with Down syndrome has been good for your mental health as well. Is the kind of, whereas isolation might be an issue for someone with learning disabilities, for a parent of someone with learning disabilities, what are some of the concerns there? What are some of the difficulties? And how can we best support that?
So are you talking about during lockdown? Because we've been building, so now are you talking about
no,
in general?
I mean, if there are any specific bits during lockdown, you can mention those. But really, the idea that any of this is kind of stuff we want it to be, stuff that people can still learn from in 6 years. So, well, in 6 months, hopefully, lockdown's not going to be 6 years. But yeah, is there anything kind of that you need?
Yeah, I'm thankful for the parents that have come before us to fight for our children to get mainstream education and to put everything in place. But there is still, you still need to look at the way we treat people with learning disabilities. I mean, there's so many of us trying to share positive stories. I mean, there are other things that I could talk about, but I don't really want to talk about in front of Jen, because even before birth, there's discrimination, unfortunately. And a lot of us are fighting against that because we feel that everybody, regardless of how many chromosomes they have, they deserve life, they deserve the chance to dance. So if learning disability was taught about in schools, there would be less stigma. We wouldn't have people staring at us. I mean, I just smile and introduce Max, but the parents don't have that confidence. That we've been to sessions where Max isn't allowed to go because he might have neck instability, which that's reasonable adjustments at Max's age could be put in place. I'm not constantly with him, and I don't see how running around can affect that. So that's kind of, there are barriers still to this day, and that people are fighting against. That listening to Sue and Malcolm, I can't believe that they're the same issues as 30 years ago.
Have you, Sue and Malcolm, have you seen many positive changes over the last 30 years? Or do you feel that there's still a lot of issues that have been present 30 years ago that are still present now?
I fear that a lot of those issues are still there. To be honest, we are so focused on the here and now and driving forward. We spend very little time looking back and seeing people such as Christina and the predicaments that they are experiencing. So we rely upon Christina to keep us up to date. But if you use that information source, then I think we can say that for people who have children of similar ages to Jen, that they are still experiencing similar barriers to Jen at particular points in their lives. And one such really good example is another of our trustees has a daughter who is coming up to transition at school and needing to make decisions about career paths, and is now working towards, surprise, surprise, becoming a dance leader, because she has been inspired by what Down syndrome has offered Jen and is offering other people, and she loves to dance. But she is looking at the progression pathways and the difficulty of still trying to find that route through, which is effectively exactly what we were facing, which led to our 10 years, as I describe it, in the wilderness, looking for those training opportunities that didn't exist. And so they have been very fortunate with the training that they have currently found, but it's only good for a few years. And then hopefully with the Down syndrome knowledge and opportunities, we will then be able to support Emma to move forward. But I think those opportunities are few and far between. They are very rare. But for me, it all comes back down to the support that you give the person and the listening to the person from the moment that person is born. And they will display their character. They will display their interests. They will show you whether they're interested in in building things, or in getting their hands greasy and taking things apart, or dancing to music. You know, every individual is an individual, and that those character traits will come through as they grow. And I think our duty as parents and as families is to nurture and to foster the traits that you perceive, and not necessarily try and channel them into something else, but to actually give them every opportunity to explore their personal interests. And as Malcolm says, dance isn't for everybody. And we have a friend who is very much into motors and cars, and he just loves to be around them, and he is so knowledgeable about them, but has so few opportunities to actually build on his interests. And it's really sad to see. So I think the paths through life are still very much down to you, the parents, to make. And I think that's the real challenge. Society does not see its role as creating those paths for you. Society sees its role as making sure that you are alive in the morning and alive at night, and you get one square meal a day. And that is still a very real tragedy. And I think it's also nonsensical, because in the greater scheme of things, that's going to lead you to the mental health issues, to the depression issues, to the obesity, to the anxiety, to the diabetes, to the hospital bills, all of which will be a lot bigger, a much bigger number for the state to have to fund than it is to put the effort and the energy into giving parents support for their families and for their disabled children in the first instance. So I think it's short-sighted.
Yeah, it's you know, we shouldn't be firefighting. We shouldn't be fixing a problem once it's happened. We should already be there supporting those people. Like you said, I've heard the parents saying that when it comes to transition, they feel as if they've just dropped off the edge of a cliff. There's no support there for them, no support there for that young adult, and it's not fair. There are opportunities, but like Sue says, they're few and far between. And it's no wonder that people feel marginalised, and then might, if they can't go out because they need a little bit of support. I mean, there's the Go Out Late, Stay Up Late campaign, because people can't stay up past 10 o'clock and they might want to stay at a nightclub with friends. You know, we need to look at this differently. The people with learning disabilities need to be able to access the same as everybody else and have a real life that's supported. And I don't understand why so many parents, so many people with learning disabilities have been fighting for this for so long, and there's been no change. I just don't understand. Sorry.
No, thank you. I was thinking as well, you mentioned earlier, obviously I deliver school education, and whether you know yourselves would be interested in this, myself and Dave are going to be creating a train-the-trainer model. So I've been delivering mental health education for the last 2.5 years, but the aim is to basically develop resources that we're going to train the school staff to deliver it on our behalf. So we're going to be piloting it within 3 high schools. And I don't just want the education to be on mental health. I want to cover a vast amount of topics, and learning disabilities, you know, with speaking to yourselves, could be one of them. Would you be interested in helping design a module on learning disabilities to then train the school staff to deliver it within schools? Because the Change Talks brand is got really popular throughout Lancashire and South Cumbria. And I feel that if we can get the train-the-trainer model right, we can embed this within high schools across the patch. So would that be something that you'd be interested in helping support? Because obviously it's not mine or Dave's area of expertise. So if you could contribute to that, that would be absolutely fantastic.
I think we'd be delighted.
Because I really do. I think if we can get this train-the-trainer model right, the aim is to embed it across the patch and then look to sell it out to other counties as well. Because the Change Talks brand, I've been contacted from places all around the country, and I feel if we can get this model correct, there's a real gap for something like this. So I've asked Dave to come in and help support this, because Dave is fantastic in regards to his mental health knowledge. And then, if you contribute to a module on learning disabilities, we'd really, really appreciate it. I think it'd be fantastic, because we want to cover other topics such as sexual health, LGBTQ, all these, a vast amount of topics that young people need to be aware of. So, that would be great. We could talk about this on another occasion. I just wanted to put that out there.
We're basically trying to remodel PHSE style education.
Yeah.
But yeah, the one thing that we found over and over again as well is, even with creating these sorts of things, is that there is I don't know if it's the same in the learning disabilities community, but in the mental health community, there's a constant outcry that not enough is being done and not enough is changing. But what we've found is that it's actually not enough is being accessed or even being pushed. And so we're actually, the reason we've got you guys on today is we want to work with other people and collaborate rather than compete. It's not like, I don't think there's any room for competition in mental health and in health in general. Really, I think we should all be almost at least trying to sing off the same hymn sheet. I know that's kind of basically impossible when we've all got different ideas on how we should do things, but we want to see a lot more collaboration, and we also want to see a lot more of what's already there being accessed. This is about episode 14, I think, in total now, is it, Sam? Yeah. This of the mental health family hour that we've done. And they get accessed like this at the beginning, and then by about week 6 everyone's like, yeah, we're done with this now. And it's like, and at the same time we'll get asked a week later, can you do this piece of education on anxiety? We're like, yeah, we've done it, it's there. So that's why we're trying to do this model, because people want it regularly, kind of like they don't just want it a once and done thing, they want kind of regular kind of education on it. And therefore, if we can create a model where we teach people to teach people to teach people to teach people, we think we might stand a chance at some real change there.
And we're really interested in doing that. I mean, it's something we've been looking at for the schools, and as we said, we do a little bit for the universities, but our view is that we could do so much more in this whole educational side of it to and start in the schools. Let's start.
The demand for it is huge. Yeah. We're basically going to be piloting it. So ideally, I'd like to create the resources from September to December, and then look to actually pilot the train the trainer model from January onwards. That's the way I'm looking at it at the moment. So if we'll get together in September sometime or October, that would be absolutely fantastic. I am going on paternity leave in a couple of weeks, so it'll be any time after that.
Not quite sure when.
So that'd be fantastic, because I really want to make this offer as broad as I possibly can, and all the schools are on board with it that I've spoke to. So I think there's a gap here that we can really exploit, and I do feel that I'm really well connected with all the high schools, so I do think it's going to be fantastic. I've got big aspirations for it, and I believe that it can definitely happen. It will happen.
I think it would be fantastic to do, and I do think, as Malcolm says, that the place to start ideally is in the schools, and I think we just need, as we were saying in the first instance, we need to remove the barrier of diagnosis, and we need to meet the Jens of this world, and just accept that everybody is a person, everybody is a human being, and everybody comes with their own assets and abilities and talents, as well as their support needs, and we all have support needs. So we're no different to each other in any respect. It's just that we have different needs and different talents. And please don't ask me to dance.
I do remember at one time, we were at Kites in Manchester, and we were all in this circle. I know you were there, Mum, and I know that my Dad was also there too, and it was just so poignant, so special for me to see my daddy having a dance of his life. I can't believe that.
It's one of those rare moments.
I think I'd find it pretty special seeing Malcolm dance.
Yeah, you would.
I can highlight you on Zoom if you like.
No, I think I don't think that would be really very artistic. We always wonder where Jen got it from, because neither Sue and I are dancers. So.
I don't know. Right? Yeah, I think you might be. You might be able to do it if you put a bit of effort in.
Let's just feed a little bit of salsa music through and see what happens. See if you off the bottom of the camera we can see the hips going like that.
Salsa.
Yeah.
What did you think of your dad's dancing, Jen?
My dancing.
No,
Yeah, no, your dad's.
Oh, my dad's. It took me by surprise. I didn't know that he had it in him. So he just like, okay, I'll give it a go. And then he just danced away, and I loved it all.
Is there any other questions, Dave, you'd like to ask?
No, I'm all good. Is there anything you guys wanted to say that we've not led you towards with the questions?
I think the only thing I would chip in, and it's flying the flag for Down syndrome, but then why wouldn't I, is that we have won so many awards. It is absolutely incredible. And we've not really been around terribly long. So it started off with Jen and Elizabeth and me winning Inspirational Woman of the Year. When was that, Jen? 2015. Is that right?
15 at the Blackpool Winter Gardens.
From the Enterprise Vision Awards. And it's just gone on from there. With every year that's passed, we have won more awards. And to be honest, I've lost tally of last year. It was either 8 or 9, which is just, and some of them just land. You know, they write to you and they say, you have been, you are on this list of the 50 most influential people with a disability in the country. It's like, oh, wow. Okay, so where did that come from? So it's, and some of them, other people nominate you for, unbeknown to you, and others you apply for. But I think that also is testimony to the power of working in the way that we do, where the leadership comes from the least likely source. So you give the dancers with learning disabilities the opportunities to be leaders, and you watch them flourish. You watch them become their own person, to develop their own confidence, that self-respect, that ability to inspire and empower and to contribute to society. So if you can fundamentally remove those barriers, take the brakes off, and give people the opportunity to be their own person, just the most amazing, remarkable things come, and the awards are testimony to that.
Awesome. Where can people find out more information about Down syndrome?
Right behind Christina.
So you can go on to Twitter at Dance Syndrome, Instagram at Dance Syndrome Gallery. We've got the website, of course, www.dancesyndrome.co.uk. We're on LinkedIn.
Facebook.
I will put all of these links in the YouTube when we put this up as well. So I'll make sure all of those are linked up there and people can find you.
But could I just say from Max's point of view, and from lots of his young friends, it's lovely for us, for them, obviously as they're growing up, but also for the parents to have these positive role models out there with learning disabilities, because it gives us hope for the future as well. And it's great for them to have somebody or something to aspire to, whether that's an actor or a model or a dancer. It's lovely to see people like Jen.
Or a queen.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sam. But I would love so much is to get Dave and Sam dancing, and I can teach you both.
Oh, I'll definitely have a dance at some point. Definitely. I used to do it. I used to do Irish dancing when I was a bit younger for a while.
Nice.
So, and I was in a musical. And do
is brand new information to me.
I'm a rugby player by background, so I kind of kept all this side of me quiet. So, with the stereotypical man's man. But I was in. Have you watched Hairspray before?
I've not yet.
So I was in a musical, and I performed quite a few times at the Preston Guildhall, and did a bit of travelling around performing Hairspray. I used to love acting and dancing and singing and all of that, but I always used to keep it quiet because all my friends were typical big rugby men, and it's a shame really, but now I'm very open about it. I'll definitely have a dance sometime, Jen.
Well, are you guys based in Manchester?
We're based wherever you want us to be based.
Okay, I was going to say post lockdown we'll come and do it, so there's no backing out. And I've made that as a promise on video now. So normally I don't volunteer Sam for things, but
well, you don't have to volunteer.
I just did. You're on. We'll come down.
Thank you very much, though, for coming on today. I think you're all absolutely wonderful and completely inspiring. I think the work that you do is just completely leading the way, and you're transforming so many people's lives. And really, honestly, it's really moved me just listening to you all speak today. And so thank you very much. It's been great.
Thanks for having us.
No, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We finished recording?